Hey guys, it's Will Krisky. That was a solo I did over a B-flat blues. This combined phrases from different sources. So what I'm trying to help you guys with is to focus on phrases. And so in the case of blues, you can divide it into 3 parts of 4 measures each. So 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12. In a general sense of phrasing. And so what we can do is, instead of worrying about all these ways of connecting things and trying to take all the theory and the scales, and maybe you've practiced the solo note for note and you really don't know what to do next, or you have a lick you can put in somewhere. But what I like to think about is phrases like sentences. So I'm going to just go through the phrases that I used and where I got them from. And I hope you like that solo. It was 2 choruses. The first phrase I took from this jazz saxophone Etudes. This is volume 3. So there's a guitar volume, the first one, jazz guitar Etudes. And that's the same as the saxophone Etudes volume 1, but there's more volumes. So if you can read notation and you don't want to wait for potential future versions, I would suggest you pick up this one. I'll put some links below in the description that you can get it from Amazon. But there's this Broadway Street blues. It's in the key, in this case, it's a C blues for sax. So what I did was modify it, transpose it. So that's the so that's a nice little phrase. And one thing to notice is you have if you want to look at a little bit of the understanding of how it works, you're hitting the 3rd of the B flat 7. And that's just one of the triads. So you've got this chromatic approach going, and then you got E flat over the E flat 7, E over the E diminished 7, and then you end up on the F, which is the 5th of B flat 7. So it's kind of cool to understand how that's working, and I'll talk about the next chorus as well, which has a similar idea. The next phrase, so now we're in bar 5, and we can think of that as a 4-bar section, but the next phrase I got from Joe DiOrio has this fusion guitar. So there's some cool intervallic stuff in there, but this is a B flat blues. And so over the E flat 7 to E diminished, he goes. So that phrase is only 2 bars. And then what I did was, as we approach the last 4 bars, I'm going into the jazz guitar Etudes that I've talked about before. The Halstead Street. So we've over the G7 and then the final C minor 7 to F7, the final 4 bars. So that's this part. So I see that as just an approach phrase to the final 4 bars. So the middle 4 isn't a full 4-bar phrase, but you finish it and then you do this. That's the B, the 3rd of the G7, and then you're hitting the C. over the C minor 7. Now the interesting thing is here on the last two bars, instead of doing the phrase, finishing the phrase in jazz guitar etudes, I decided to go back into Joe DiOrio's fusion guitar and do this phrase. So the two phrases at the time when I switch, they're both landing on F. So I decided, why not do something different? And that phrase got me up to around the 10th fret area. So that way, in that sense, what I actually did was I split a phrase that I knew and went a different direction using another phrase, just because they happen to have the same note at that point. That's over the B flat 7 in bar 11. So then when we get into the second chorus, an interesting thing, I actually used jazz guitar etudes again, but there's another blues tune in there. So the first chorus I used Halstead Street, and for the second chorus, I'm just going to grab the blues here. Can't find it. Oh, here it is. Fullerton Avenue. Sorry, I don't know the names of the streets here. Fullerton Avenue is actually in the key of F in this jazz guitar etudes. There's a line in here right at the beginning. So what I did was I moved that up to the B flat. But the previous chorus I had ended right on the D. So I went, and then I went. So I went. This phrase starts on the and of beat 1, and I started on D on the beat 1. So I've added a note to that phrase just to connect them. So that way I went from, I have a pretty long phrase. That's the other thing is, even though I talk about phrases, 2-bar, 4-bar phrases, then you can start to connect them into longer phrases, or shorter if you want to cut out some stuff. So it's just an amazing way. Sometimes people learn a solo and they get, it's so strong in their mind, and I've had this situation where I didn't know what to do to vary it. I just was stuck. And by thinking about phrases, it gives you a nice idea. You do one phrase and then you leave a bit of space and you can move on to the next phrase. So that's the Fullerton Avenue part. Then I go back to Halstead Street over the E flat 7 and E diminished 7, but I'm doing it up an octave. So instead of doing it down here, I went. The reason is I'm in this area. So when I finish a phrase on a certain note and I go to start the next phrase, I like to have that phrase in the same area. I don't mean of the fretboard, but in the same pitch range. It's not exact science, but if you do something down here and then all of a sudden you jump up, it doesn't sound as good in a lot of cases, but it can work. I just noticed that happens a lot, and it sounds pretty cool. So, then what I do is I go back to Joe DiOrio's fusion guitar, where there's this line. That's his line. And then you might recognize that from Halstead Street. That's how I ended it. So you can see that I've combined solos, phrases from about 4 different solos in different areas. 2 from jazz guitar etudes, at least 2 from Joe DiOrio's Fusion guitar, and the Saxophone Volume 3 Jazz Etudes. So I'll put the links in the video below. As you know, I've talked about hip licks as well. So when you have a 2-5, like near the end of the tune, in bars 9 and 10, you could take the 2-5s from the hip licks as well for guitar. I actually have, let me just see if I can grab this. Hip licks for saxophone, this is volume 2. So if you want to get even more licks, you should check this out. If you're a guitar player, you could just take a bit of time if you don't read notation, but a whole nother batch of licks here. One other one that's really good that I like is the jazz guitar structures. Let's see if I can get the, yeah, here it is. Jazz guitar structures from Andrew Green. That's this one here. My books are kind of beat up, but the idea is to use little structures like a minor 7 structure, a minor, like a scalar fragment, 1 2 3 4, and a 1 2 3 5, sort of a Coltrane. But there's a couple of sample solos. There's this over the blues. There's an E flat 7 to E diminished 7. It goes, and that combines the C minor 7, D flat 1 2 3 4 5, or 1 2 3 5 pattern. That's a C minor 7 again in a different inversion, and that's an A 1 2 3 5 pattern. But I found that when I practiced a lot of the individual things, the triads, the pentatonic patterns, and that, I really couldn't string together a solo on the fly very well. Like one of the long, the bebop stringing, long lines, stuff like that. So what I like to do is take phrases from other people, and you can create your own and get them up to speed. But a lot of times, you're playing pretty quick, and these lines have to be internalized. And I find that I like to think in phrases and just build up a library of phrases. And there is some continuity and some ways that you can connect them and develop them so that it's not just a bunch of licks. You can hopefully tell in that blues that it was pretty melodic. So I think that's all I want to say about this. It's a bit of a long video here, but I think it's an amazing way to go, and it's very productive. Like, I spent years on other things that didn't really get me anywhere. And this is fun. It's right at the song level. You're into the song. You're playing phrases. But a lot of people have problems once they learn licks or solos, what to do. And so you can break down tunes into phrases. I've seen, giant steps or something like that. You see all these crazy chord changes, but you can think of it, take one big four measure chunk and learn phrases. So there's a book by Wolf Marshall, Giant Steps for Guitar. He's got a whole bunch of 4-bar phrases, and then there's, he deals with the other sections of the tune. But that way you're just learning these phrases that work over the tune, and there's all sorts of key changes that, but you don't really worry about it. You're just working on the phrases. And it's going by pretty quick, so you really need to practice these lines and get them under your fingers, so you're not really thinking about it too much. So hopefully that helps, and we'll be doing a lot more of these in the future. So keep subscribed and liked this video, and check out those books I mentioned, and maybe drop me a line, let me know how it's going. Hey guys, one other quick thing I forgot to mention. I've got the PDF for sale on my website, so it's willkriske.com/products, but I'll put a link in the video below. And I've got a bunch of other solos that I've been doing that take phrases from different sources. And there's one PDF that is an explanation, really detailed about where I got them from. So you guys should check those out, and that way you can work on them as well and see where I got them and really get into this. All right, see you later.